Well, welcome, Elaine. I understand you know a mutual friend of ours, Tony Maselli, correct?
Yes.
All right. And Tony is one of our advanced optimal EFT unseen therapist students, and you had a session with him.
Yes.
How long ago was it?
Oh, not long ago. Golly, I don't know, a week and a half.
Okay. All right. All right. So you were working on it. We were working on an issue, and actually, I've got an email here from Tony, and I got some stuff highlighted, et cetera. And we're going to kind of talk about you because you had a unique experience. It wasn't just maybe getting some resolution on some part of your issue. There was something big time happen in addition to that, and that is what I like to label a spiritual experience. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So explain that if you would. I mean, I'm reading here, and it says here that while you were in this, it's like your head started moving involuntarily. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Uh,
We'll talk about that. What happened to your head?
it's hard to know. I was in a uh, meditative state,
Yes.
and so it's hard to know whether it was actually moving or whether I just felt like it was moving. But it felt like it kind of moved like that and then kind of jerked like that. And the reason I remember it is I wrote it down, and I'm just kind of
Yeah.
telling you what I wrote. Um, and then I don't know, it kind of calmed down, but I had that kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
wobbly feeling. And then and I was questioning it in my mind, what, like what's happening.
Sure.
And uh, and then at the end of it, I had the feeling that my head bowed,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that.
Okay.
But I don't know again whether it was actually physically visible to somebody. Maybe Tony would know.
Well, yeah, he might. He might. But let me suggest that there are a growing number of people who are undergoing unseen therapist sessions as a result of the work that's coming out of myself and my website and so on. Okay. And well, not many get the experience you just had of, is my head moving, et cetera. But I have on film people I've worked with where they're going like this, almost involuntarily, not just their head, but I mean their body is doing this. And it's not that they couldn't stop it; it's that they didn't want to stop it. It's like it was somebody was moving them because they needed to be moved for whatever purpose. Other people have felt like hands on their shoulders, taking care of knots in the tension that might be in shoulders and so on. So anyway, that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And you don't know if it actually happened or not, but you had the sensation of it happening. So, I mean, that's one of the things that would go on in here. And I wanted to have other people hear about your experience. Okay, now, you eventually said there was like a feeling of a solid rod or something forged in your body. What's that?
Actually, I had a similar experience. Many years ago, maybe I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And it did feel like there was a solidity being formed in my body. And I took it as a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know, kind of like my inward spirituality was becoming more solid.
Okay.
Uh, but the feeling that I had this time was that the solidity started from my heart, and my heart is where I experienced most of my spiritual feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But it went down towards my first chakra, and then started from my heart and went up to my head. And when it reached, when it, and then it felt like one solidity. And then it was like, and I know this sounds weird, but it was like the top of my head kind of opened energetically. I'm sure my head definitely did not open in real life,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it opened energetically. And when that happened, I had this uh, incredible feeling of light and oneness. Uh, I felt very at one with, and it wasn't like I necessarily felt like, like I was one with heaven this way, but I felt, uh, I don't know, energetically connected with good things.
Well, I love the comment, Elaine. It's a because it echoes things that I've heard, not from everyone who experiences this, and people don't have to experience this oneness during a session to get results and all of that, but some do. That's why you and I are talking. But this, go
I
ahead,
just want
go
to
ahead.
add something. I, when that was coming, that solidity was coming up, I felt as if, and this happened a little bit earlier, and this was the second time it happened. I felt like my head was almost elongated. Now, I know that didn't really happen, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what it energetically felt like. And that's when it opened. But it
Okay,
was like there was something pushing upward.
all right, and it ends up with you having a sense of being one. Now, I've talked to many people who have had these spiritual experiences, and most of them talk about this sense of being one. But that's a hard thing for most of us to put our head around. What is one? Because our senses tell us everything is separate. You are separate from me. I got a separate body from you. The couch is separate from you that you're sitting on. So is the computer you're looking at. There's nothing but separation all over the place to our senses. And yet somehow we transcend that. It happened in my spiritual experience as well. We transcend that, and then there is this oneness sense that is challenging to put words around because there are no English words for it, or any other language that I know of anyway, for it. So can you try to put some words around it? What does that one mean?
Actually, I have had other spiritual experiences, but none that happened in a setting like this.
Yes.
I had a spontaneous experience just in my living room in which I became one with the room. It was like uh, all the everything uh, that would have atoms, which is everything, uh, and I were one. And I wasn't any different than anything else.
Now that's interesting because that's one of the interesting, fascinating features of quantum physics, because quantum physics studies atoms. And one of the things they found, and this is not a new finding, it's been around for decades, okay? And that is at the atomic level, everything is connected. Now, our senses don't sense that
Mm-hmm.
until we have a spiritual experience like you and I have had. And then this oneness feature that the quantum physicists have found, now, there it is. It's like, this is not an exact thing, but it's like another sense. Would you agree with that?
I would. And it stays with you for, I mean, I'm certainly not a mystic or anything like that, who stays in this state, but uh, this state stayed with me for a few days. I mean, I didn't feel like I was atomically, but this profound oneness and love uh, stayed with me for a
Okay.
few days.
You also said somewhere in the letter here, as a result of all this, you were connected to the love of God. I think you used those words. Do you equate this oneness with the love of God?
Well, definitely. My personal, after other experiences that I've had, I do believe that love is the fabric of the universe. But that's kind of sounds kind of
Not
easy, but it's the love of
not to me, dear.
love is love is God. I mean, it's like all one, can't be separated.
I've been where you've been, my own version of it. Okay, and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. We're promoting this kind of thing. For those who have been there, it is so obvious. For those who haven't been there, please join us. We have this stairway to miracles. We're metaphorically climbing, and so on. A couple other things, Elaine. Well, one other actually. As a result of this experience, you ended up with some automatic writing, meaning you didn't write with your, like with a pencil or pen. You sat at a keyboard and you just started writing, and it was a message from the spiritual dimension. We're going to call it the unseen therapist. And I've got the words here, and we can put them down, for people to read and so on. But tell me what that experience was like.
Well, I was at a keyboard because I was in a Skype session with Tony, and I had been very deep into a meditative state, and kind of coming out of it, and then I just I don't know, I don't think I really heard a voice at that point, but I just felt an urge to put my fingers on the keyboard and wait. And maybe I did have an urge to do it. It's a little hard to remember. Um, and then I just started typing, and I'm really, not the. It's funny because I'm not uh, apt to type without making a few mistakes, but I didn't make any mistakes, and the words just flowed. And that's not like my own writing either. I will stop and think and go back and change things. And, uh, it could have been words that I said, but they flowed more freely than what I would normally do.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I wouldn't really call it automatic writing, but many, 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 many years ago, my high school athletic coach, football coach, baseball coach, was retiring, and they asked me to come and maybe talk at this meeting of all of his athletes. Hundreds of guys came, et cetera. And so what I did was, the day before I got on an airplane and went to my hometown where this gathering was going to be, is I wrote a poem for my coach. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting, I don't write poems. I may have written a poem in school or something because I had to, but other than that, I just never wrote poems. So I sat down and started writing this, and I just started writing it, with a paper and pencil, writing it, and it just, like you're saying, it just flowed. Okay. The rhyming flowed. I had to stop a little bit. Does this rhyme with that? But minimal. It just pretty much flowed through. And I didn't make any corrections. The next morning, I was supposed to get on the airplane, so I got up, I read it again, so, let me change this, let me change that. A couple of little edits, but that was it. And read that poem, but that's the kind of thing that would take you a day or two or three to Right, because it was a 5-minute poem. There was lots of stuff in it. You know, it'd take you a few days to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and all this happened in an hour, less than an hour. Okay.
Wow.
So that's my form of automatic writing. I had no idea at that time that I was being guided as to how I would write it. I was being assisted in my writing. It was a very loving poem. Unseen Therapist loves loving things. Okay.
This was addressed to, I mean, it wasn't addressed like to Elaine, but it was, you know, I was the audience.
Yeah.
It was being written to me.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Elaine, anything else you would like to add?
No.
Okay. All right. Let me give you a great big gratitude and thank you for sharing your experience with us. A number of people are going to find this quite interesting, I'm sure. So with that, a great big spiritual hug, a kiss. Okay. Bye.